Hi, hey, hello, how y'all doing? Welcome back to the channel. It's your host, Gunny Valentine, and I'm currently in the process of bringing the Casull from the series Hellsing to the real world. In this installment, I'm going to be going over the design I've drawn up and showcase an actual physical model in the form of a 3D printed one. So without further ado, let's jump right into it, and I present to you the Casull. This is the model I've came up with, and I've drawn up so far, and I'm pretty confident that I've gave it a pretty decent representation. I'm going to showcase what I've drawn up as I go over the various models and show the 3D printed version at the end of the video, as well as give my opinion on how it came out and possible changes I'm going to make to the design as I proceed further into the process of actually building it. But before getting too far into it, however, I'll acknowledge that the grip is off, but I'll get to that later in the video. Okay, so starting off with the slide. Figured I'd start working my way top down, so we'll just go from there. I give it some extremely basic, just fixed, non-adjustable front and rear sights on it. Nothing too fancy, but because I can end up changing those later, but just something to sort of, give me a visual of how it's going to end up looking. I believe I recreated the slide fairly well, in my opinion. You can see that from the profile, it's very similar to that of the original and looks the part pretty closely. I had no access to the font here for the engraving on the front or on the sides of the slide, so I dragged a picture into Fusion and traced it to the best of my abilities and then extruded on both sides. So as you can see here, we got the Hellsing ARM 454 Casull Auto, Hellsing ARM Weapon Industries Company Limited, little copyright logo there. Some of the more diehard fans might notice a little Easter egg here with the Hellsing instead of Hellsing, so that want to leave that in there. Behind that, continue along the left side of the slide here. You'll see we have the actual specs for the Casull engraved on the, accurate to the source material. Got long slide, automatic 10-inch caliber reconstruction, 454 Casull. Even though the reconstruction is only pertaining to the modified round and using the anime, and this one will fire the real deal 454 Casull, I think it adds to the aesthetics, so I'm going to keep the reconstruction on there. As we flip the gun around over to the right side, you'll see we have the same engraving on the front that we do on the left side. And as we move back here, we have 454 Casull engraved on the side of the barrel, like it is in the actual show. In the below, we have the Made in England with the little Hellsing insignia, which I'm assuming are like the wings. So I had that little thing I drew up there. I try to keep a unique profile here for the ejection port that it has. And, I think it looks pretty good. There might be some interference later on down the road when I actually make a firing version that might have some extraction issues because it is kind of sitting a little behind it. Like at the moment, I've got the extractor sitting at like a 90 degree, so I'm probably gonna end up having to move that and rotate it up somehow to have it extracting more at a 45 degree angle to offset not, this being an issue. But that's something I'll worry about, down the road when I get to an actual, functional model. I'll move back here towards the back. We got the serrations in the back of the slide for easier manipulation of the slide. And we got the hammer. As we move back here to the hammer, we also, we'll see that it has some serrations on the top of it as well to give a better grip to the actual, hammer. Although I've drawn it probably a little too fine. So, but yeah, that's the slide so far. Now, let's move down to the frame. Alright, moving down from the slide to the frame, as I previously said, I'm going to acknowledge to shave the grips off. That's on me. That is just a momentary thing. I did that specifically to compensate for giving me as much room as I could to, work with the internals to make sure that I could fit all the mechanical parts inside, and I'd go back later and trim off some of the fat to slim it up, to the best of my abilities. The next major change of the design is definitely going to be fixing the grip to slim it up for sure. Because I definitely want it to, fit the aesthetic of the actual model. Going to have that more of like a swoopy curve here. Try and squeeze a little tighter here too. So that's sort of my priorities at the moment. Moving forward here, we got your trigger, got your mag release. I got your hammer pin back here. Got this little accented piece here under the trigger guard, which I'm assuming is meant to be some sort of reinforcement, but I don't really know what its purpose it serves. The design I went with is actually from the OVA version, because it's got this little bit of a curve here, and I think it just kind of looks better. And that's purely just an aesthetic choice that I went with. I took a couple things in terms of design cues from the OVA, but for the most part, I'm sticking with the Ultimate version, just because I think it's a lot more iconic design. Although there are some things from the OVA that I do like a little bit more, like this little bit of a swoop here, even though it's not, it's minute at the end of the day. So now we've looked at the slide and the frame. Let's go ahead and take a look at the internals real quick. Alright, so I have the slide isolated in a separate model, the whole assembly, just to showcase a little bit better. But here's the slide. We're doing some mechanisms, or we're going to be showcasing the internals that I've got drawn up, and for the most part, I think it looks, I've done a pretty decent design. The slide assembly is going to be very similar to that of a Beretta 92 that I was using for reference, because as I was watching the show, you'll notice that when he fires the gun, the barrel doesn't tilt. It's straight sliding, so it doesn't, utilize a tilting barrel mechanism. It uses just straight back and forth, and one of the ones that sort of came to mind first was the Beretta, and I have one, so I, took it and looked at it for reference, and just took it apart enough and messed around with it to try and get an understanding of how the slide works in that whole assembly. So I've sort of gone up with something that's kind of similar. I'll showcase to you real quick just kind of what I got drawn up. So we got like a sort of a block here that slides, and it's going to be it's going to stay with the barrel as it moves in and out, with a little lug on the bottom of the frame that's going to be moving that up and down to lock and unlock the slide from the barrel as it moves. We got a piece. This is part of the guide rod assembly, so I'm just kind of going with that. The Beretta 92 is definitely one of the more major inspirations mechanically for this thing, at least for the upper half for the slide. So yeah, there's pretty much majority of what's got going on there. Moving down to the frame, again, I have it just showcasing some of the parts of the slide. I'll make it a little easier to look at. We have the internals. Here's this little plate that's used as a takedown. So this is the plate that's going to retain the slide assembly. I have a little thing here. You pull that down, it'll drop this plate, and then you can slide the whole assembly forward off the gun. Moving back here, we get to, there's your slide release with your trigger here in the front. Trigger right on the side. We got the magazine. I'll showcase that here by itself in a second. Moving back to the trigger bar, wrapping around the side of the slide. Moving back towards the trigger assembly, which we have, there's a little bit of interference, I'll mess with that later. We have the trigger assembly, so I'll go ahead and show you that here in a second. And here we have the trigger assembly, isolated on its own. I've sort of got this self-contained pod that I built it as, just that way, like, I could, pop this pin out and I could pull the whole assembly out, make it a little bit easier to mess with it. So yeah, there it is. This is designed roughly off the Czech ZZ38 trigger assembly, which, if you don't have an idea of what that is, Forgotten Weapons, Ian over there has a video on it detailing that gun, and the thing that drew the interest of it to me is just how simple of a design the trigger is. It's a double action only originally, but I've modified mine to be a single and double action instead of being just double action. But I just wanted to showcase this. We can actually show the trigger here. Like I said, this is very early on. I'm still working on this. This is the thing I'm least confident with. Most of the stuff I've got designed on the gun I'm pretty confident with. The barrel assembly might have to be changed a little bit. I'll explain why later. But that and the trigger assembly is going to be tweaked a little bit as well. So I'm working on both. Actually, I'll go ahead and show you the magazine and just give you a quick look at that. Here's the magazine assembly. You can tell it's a very aggressive angle because of the cartridge. Just to, give you an idea. I got them stacked up, kind of looking like that. Trying to keep them as slim as I could. Follower's got a very aggressive angle on it. Like I said, this is very early on drawing. Nothing's set in stone right now, but this is kind of what I'm going with. I'm going to tweak this as I go on, but I just wanted to showcase that. So, like I said, I'm working with what I got so far, but I'll change stuff as time goes on. So there's the magazine. So yeah, let's move on to the next part. Now comes the fun part, the physical model. I didn't really have a way to set up and record the whole thing. I just got a couple bits of B-roll from early on in the printing of this attempt, but I'll try to do something for the next time if I can. Anyway, here's the 3D print. So without further ado, I present to you the prototype. This is the first one, obviously. It's not going to be the last. But overall, I'm pretty pleased with how it came out. There are a couple things I want to change on it for sure, but right now I'm going to go over the pros mainly. So, starting off, I want to preface this too by saying I only printed the slide, the barrel, and the frame with this little piece here on. I also got the sights on there too, just to get an idea of the sight picture. And overall, I'm pretty pleased with it. It looks pretty accurate. Technically, it's not. It could be longer, but like I said, it'd be going against the barrel length that it's supposed to have, which I'm kind of glad that I stuck with a shorter length, because if I did have the 10-inch barrel with the overall length of the 15.4 inches, it would be like way back here, which would just look weird. So, I think it looks better this way. Starting off, I'm going to say the sights pretty basic, but for what they are, the sight picture is actually not too bad. Maybe I can. It's kind of hard to simulate this on the screen, but for looking at it in person, the sight actually isn't that bad. The engravings, if you want to call them that, actually turned out okay. They look they look the part pretty decent, actually. I mean, definitely, you know, came out the Hellsing Arm 454 Casull Auto, Hellsing Arms Weapon Industries Co. Limited with the copyright symbol, but it's kind of wavy. I didn't print it very deep. Got your specs here, which it's really trippy because it's kind of got this wavy look, so it looks like it's further away than it is. I'm messing with my eyes, but I mean, the fact that they actually put it on there, you know, that just goes to show you how decent the 3D printers are. Serrations on the back feel right. The thickness of it, it's right about an inch thick. It's not too crazy thin. The feel of it, in terms of like the size, just like the slide's not blocky, not super massive. I mean, it feels good. But yeah, that's the majority of the stuff of the front. But I do really like how the ejection port looks. I mean, it definitely looks, the part looks pretty good. We also got the 454 Casull engraved on the barrel. That was kind of a challenge, but it did a pretty decent job at it. That's part of the assembly for the takedown. That's whatever, which I just now realized this. I didn't actually plan this out, but it has the looks of a cross, which I feel like is poetic almost to the design, or to what this is supposed to symbolize. Anyway, from moving down the slide, or to the frame, like I said, it looks apart pretty well. It's pretty thin. The thickness of it's not too bad. I think it's close to like 0.8 inches, 0.9 inches, somewhere in that area. The thickness of it is bad. The width is the problem. Now, like I said, the frame's not the right contour it's supposed to have. It's supposed to be a lot more accentuated curve here at the back. Like I said, I'm 6'1". I got decent sized hands, and it, you know, it's not too bad. Like you could hold this with one hand, but it's a little uncomfortable. Another thing I want to point out too, the grip is definitely a little bit shorter than it should be, because it's pretty close to like a Glock 19 grip. That was on it. Which, hold on a second, actually. Here we go. I got my Glock 19 for reference here, so it's got a snap cap in it, so don't worry about that. But the grip length is actually, didn't mean to do that. The grip length is actually almost identical to that of a Glock 19. It's a little shorter than it needs to be. I mean, overall, this isn't too bad. I definitely am going to add a little bit of length down here for sure. I mean, other than that, the size of the trigger wells feels good. It does hug very nicely here. I mean, yeah, I'm very much pleased with it, though. Like, it turned out better than I thought it would for a first version of it. Definitely going to make some changes. If you stick around, I've actually already got some updated changes. Nothing serious, but just to, you know, already make a decent step forward. I've already changed the grip profile, so I'll showcase that at the end. So there it is. I mean, I think it definitely, you know, looks pretty cool, actually. You know, hopefully y'all tell me what you think as well. Anyway, let's jump back to me on the computer to finish out the video, and then, you know, we'll go from there. So, yeah. Alright, so as I promised, I'm already going to go ahead and show you all a little bit of an update I've already done to the frame itself. This is the original that I just showed you all. I've gone over most of the stuff here on it that I've got at this point. But just with a little bit of a change I've already done, made it a little bit longer. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what I've got so far, just to give you an idea of what little bit of a change has already improved the design, in my opinion. So here we go. This is what I've got so far now. So I think it definitely made an improvement to the overall, you know, just aesthetic of the gun. It just looks a lot better with that little bit of a change. As you can see on the original here, the grip's got that typical sort of straight 1911-esque profile to it, which, you know, looks good, but it just doesn't look 100% accurate. And plus, like I said, it's a little thicker than I'd like it to be. The new version I've got drawn up already, I've added a little bit more of an aggressive contour here, with a little bit of a curve that swoops back to make it a little bit easier on the hand. I've also slimmed up a little bit on the front here. You can see that. Got a little bit more of a rounder profile on it compared to the original here, which has like, it's round somewhat, but then it flattens out, so it's a little bit just chunkier at the front, which I'm not a super big fan of. The trigger guard area also has like more of a straight angle cutoff here, which your finger's not really cutting it, but it, you know, it looks kind of okay. This one ends up going with more of a curvier sort of aesthetic to it. But overall, I mean, I think it definitely is already improvement. Just those two little things, just lengthening the grip slightly and giving it a more smooth contour to the actual grip. So just wanted to showcase that so far. At this moment, I'm kind of caught up to what I've got done on it. The last couple bits have just been me sort of just catching up to now as far as I've gotten. It's going to be a while before there's anything else updated about it, at least substantial enough to warrant a whole new video on, because I'm not going to make like a tiny little modification and be like, oh, I've changed the trigger shape and make a video on that. I'm not going to do that. I want to make enough of a substantial change to the design that warrants me making a video on it. So I've actually sort of been trying to get some ideas for the time being of some gap filling stuff. So I was maybe thinking about doing some videos pertaining to maybe going over other guns in like sci-fi or other anime or just fantasy or any other genre that just fictional firearms, and just showcasing video games is another big one too, and just like sort of showcasing like how it could function. Is it feasible, and kind of what mechanical operation that it uses? Or I might maybe make some videos on me doing some shooting of my own guns. I got a decent collection. It's nothing too crazy, but I do have some guns that aren't super common. So I might make some videos just me shooting some stuff like that. Just whatever. If anybody has any recommendations, I definitely would like look into them. I just wanted to sort of throw that out there. But this is it for the time being on this. It's going to be a little bit while before I get some more stuff on it. But yeah, there you go. Hopefully you all enjoyed the video and want to see more. If you want to see more, consider subscribing and staying along for it as I try and make this thing into the real deal. But until then, that'll be all for now. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. So, see ya.